Welcome to Complex Roof Design in SketchUp. I'm Drew Murphy, a general contractor. This is part one of 3 parts. This is the third video in this series. The first 2 are Primer for roof design in SketchUp and Simple Roof Design. Primer is a tutorial on the basic tools and concepts of SketchUp, and it's intended for the SketchUp newbie. This video continues from Simple Roof Design, and I assume that you understand the concepts and tools described in the first 2 videos. There's a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to move along pretty rapidly and often with little detailed explanation, except where I introduce new tools or concepts. SketchUp has an API. With it you can create tools, automate tasks, and reports and things of that nature. These tools are called plugins. In Simple Roof Design I only use native SketchUp tools in an effort to try to keep things simple. But in this video I've decided to use them because they are so helpful. They save so much time that I think it's worth it. I'll also introduce you to the trim tool, one of the solid tools which are available only with SketchUp Pro. The reason I'm doing this is because, like some of the plugins I'm having you install, it saves a tremendous amount of time and it's a great set of tools. I will show you, however, alternatives to using the trim tool. There are 2 main sources of plugins for SketchUp. The first is SketchUp's Extension Warehouse, and the second is Sketchucation's Plugin Store and Manager. Of the 2, Sketchucation's Plugin Store is vastly superior. Sketchucation.com is the one online resource that every SketchUp user should become acquainted with. The first plugin we're going to install is Sketchucation's Store and Manager. This will help us install and manage the rest of them. So open a browser and type in Sketchucation.com. And then over here, select the plugin store. And recently they have made it available online, so you could actually do your downloads, your searches for plugins and downloads right here. But we want to actually install the actual plugin, so go to Authors, select Sketchucation. Their plugin store is right here. Select Download. And there it is. Go ahead and get rid of the browser. Once the RBZ file is downloaded, go ahead and go to Windows, Preferences, Extensions, Install Extension, select the RBZ file, select Open, Yes, and then another Yes, and now it is installed. And to make sure that it's installed, go over to View, Toolbars, and it opened it off screen, so there it is. And then scroll down to make sure that it is selected so it's visible. Here's the Sketchucation Plugin Store. Scroll down a little farther, and this is the SketchUp Warehouse. Make sure that's selected as well. Now, here they are on the toolbar. Put them wherever you want them. I'll show you how to install plugins from the various sources. Select the red cube, which is Sketchucation's Plugin Store. And it's easiest to go ahead and select the author here from the drop down. In this case we're looking for Didier Burr. And then we'll scroll down and look for Align 3D. Right there, click on Auto Install. There'll be a couple of dialogues. Yes, and it's installed. Exit out of that, go over here and select the SketchUp Extension Warehouse. If you're not already logged in, it will ask you to log in. And it's basically a Google account. And then we're going to install something from the SketchUp team, which is rotate a rectangle tool. Here it is. I've already installed it, which is why the uninstall button shows up here. For you, it would be the install button. Click on it and off you go. Under the YouTube description, I've placed some links for resources you might want to use. They include a list of plugins to install, and this completed model and a list of shortcut keys that you may choose to use. This is the roof we're going to be building. It's pretty interesting. It's a 7 and 12 pitch for the most part, except for 12 and 12 here at the entry and at the second floor and at the second floor turret. The trick to doing a complex roof like this is to break it up into discrete pieces, such as the first floor roof, the entry roof, the second floor roof, and the turret. From the wall massing, we will determine the floor plans, and from the floor plans, we'll develop the roof plan. So starting with the first floor plan, which is made up of two parts, which is the tower and then the balance of the first floor plan. Let's make a copy of this. Edit, copy, edit, paste in place, and then let's go ahead and save, rather hide, the original, and then rename this to first floor roof plan. Edit mode on this. Use the offset tool to get our eaves and overhangs, in this case 36 inches. Enter. We don't need this inside edge, so I delete one of the segments so I can double click, triple click the rest and delete it. Escape out of that, and let's edit this, and likewise do the same. Go back into here, use the push-pull tool, drag it up, then select the protractor tool, and let's enter our 7 and 12 pitch. So 7:12, enter, and then let's draw a guide from this edge to the center of this wall. Let's check to make sure that it is center, because sometimes it will snap to the center of a segment if it's not contiguous and not the entire wall. This is good. Get rid of the excess. Double click so that we select the entire perimeter edge so that the follow me tool will extrude around it. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and then Control A to select all, and then let's intersect, context click, that is the right mouse button, intersect faces with context. In the future I'll just use a shortcut key for this, and then this will make sure that we have actual intersections for all of these planes, which will make it easier for us to edit out all the garbage. And when we edit out the garbage, we have to kind of move carefully because we can inadvertently eliminate planes that we need. And so I like to start from the bottom. Let's work on the tower. select it, enter edit mode, and let's go up here to view, component, edit, and hide the rest of the model. In the future I'll use this hotkey. And then we'll use the plugin, add center point, place a guide in the center, draw a line through it, segmenting it into two faces. And then use the push-pull tool, drag this up, and then the protractor tool to determine our 7 and 12 pitch. Seven colon 12, enter. Place a guide in the center, and we'll define the face that we're going to extrude around this circle and get rid of all the rest of the junk we don't need, including this edge. And we'll select the edge that we're going to extrude this around, and then select the follow me tool and extrude. And it looks as though we have a little extra junk that we need to go ahead and get rid of. So from the view hidden geometry, you select this and it's going to show every hidden edge, every edge that has been softened and hidden and what have you. So in the future I'll use the hotkey. And we move on in here and we can see that there's some extraneous junk here we don't need. Being careful not to inadvertently delete one of these other edges. Unhiding, and then we have this to get rid of, and we might as well get rid of that center point as well. Okay, then I'm unhiding the rest of the model. And there we have it. And let's go ahead and intersect these two groups. So, escape out of this group. I'm going to explode this, and select this, and explode this. Control A to select all. And then I'm going to, I can use any of the intersect commands. I can intersect with context, intersect with selection, or intersect with model at this point. Typically I'll use intersect with context, right click, intersect face with context. And then we have our edges determined, and we can go ahead and trim off the stuff that we do not need. Just as a matter of good housekeeping, it looks like all of these faces are reversed, so I'll select them all, context click on reverse faces. This is just general housekeeping. There are some actual reasons for it I won't get into at this point. And let's work on the entry roof, which is going to be a 12 and 12 pitch roof. So from the wall massing, we'll make a copy of the floor plan, and we'll group it. And we'll name the group Entry Roof Plan. Edit mode. Use the offset tool, type in 36 inches. Enter. And since there's a wall in the back, well, let's just truncate it. And get rid of these. Okay. Extrude this up. Get a guide for the middle. Use the protractor tool to develop the 12 and 12 pitch. And let's get rid of extra stuff. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this a group so I can move it and move it to the back. Then ungroup it, explode it rather. I'm going to select these three edges because this roof is up against a wall, so we don't need the rear to have a pitch to it. And then select the follow me tool. Okay, it doesn't want to do that. I don't know why, but let's see if I can just do it manually. There we go, that's easy. Select it all and reverse the faces. And that looks good. With a little bit of cleanup. And since I have no way to register this, I'm going to go ahead and create a surface on the bottom, or a face on the bottom. And use the offset tool again for 36 inches. So that I have a way of getting this back to where it belongs. And I will select it here and bring it back to where it's supposed to be, double click it, and get rid of this face because I don't need it. Hide the rest. Get rid of this face and all its edges. Okay, so there we have it. Now I'm going to take this group, this entry roof plan, I'm going to drag it right here in the outliner. I'm going to go ahead and drag it over to the first floor roof plan underneath it, and then I'll explode it. And then I will Control A to select all, and then I will intersect faces with selection here with a hotkey. So how exactly this works out, I'm not quite sure, so I'm just going to leave it like this for the time being. In fact, I think I see a little error here. I see that these should have continued all the way down to intersect with this here, because this roof is on top of this. So I'm clicking Shift H to unhide all these edges, and I'm just going to extend these edges all the way down. And then I will soften and smooth these edges like the other ones. And I'll show you what I mean here. If I select this edge right on over here, you will see that it has been softened and smoothed, which makes it look like it's a smooth curve. So I will do that by selecting the Shift key, holding down the Control key while I run it over, and you can see that it softened and smoothed those edges. then Shift H again to hide all those edges. So I believe what's going to occur, and we'll verify this a little later, but I'm not sure, so we'll leave it. I believe that this will be removed, but we'll leave it for the time being. Yes, actually I was wrong. What's going to happen is this wall will continue up and intersect with this curved face, and then this roof is California framed on top of this roof here. So we're good to go like that. So one useful thing to note at this particular time is these tools right on over here. This is the Styles toolbar, and it's very handy when you're looking for intersections that you can't see to go ahead and select this item here, which is the X-ray style, which allows you to look behind the actual faces and surfaces and see edges. You might remember that in the view toolbars we had looked at this right here, styles. That is that toolbar. I had mentioned that you can select it or not at your choice. Okay, so we'll quickly develop the second floor and the turret roof plans. Group it, call it second floor roof plan. Drag it out from underneath wall massing. Now we'll get the turret roof, hiding the rest of the model. So there we've pretty well developed our roof planes. And I guess the next thing to do would be to relabel these. This is no longer a second floor roof plan, it is second floor roof planes. And likewise the first floor roof plan is first floor roof planes. Now I notice over on the back side over here where the second floor roof intersects with the first floor roof that it's not quite right. So second floor roof should intersect at the ridge right there. So I'm going to raise this up just a little bit. So I move the second floor roof up just a little bit so that it intersects directly on that ridge, which is going to simplify a whole lot of things. So from the three-dimensional roof planes, we're going to develop the two-dimensional roof plan. And in preparation for that, let's hide the stuff that we don't need. So the only thing visible now is a first floor roof planes. And we'll select that, and let's make a copy of that. We'll hide the original. And we'll leave that like it is for now. So now we want to collapse this three-dimensional object here into 2 dimensions to get our roof plan. Now in the last video, the simple roof design in SketchUp, I showed you how to do this using the move tool, locking the context using the up cursor key. And we won't do that this time because this is a complex roof and it's going to be a whole lot of work to do it that way. So we're going to do something more simple. You might remember that one of the plugins I asked you to download and install was Work Planes and Flatten to Plane. Flatten to Plane will do exactly that. Now before we can use Flatten to Plane, we have to create a work plane. To do that, we go to the Tools menu, select Work Plane and New Plane, and just go over to the axes. It's the easiest way to do it. Select the origin, drag the cursor out, select somewhere on that axis, and then on the next axis, the red axis in this case, which describes the base plane, double click on it, and there you have your new work plane. And don't worry about the fact that it seems very small. It is red because it is locked, and that's a good thing for us. Now the thing about work plane and flatten to plane is the work plane actually has to be in the same context as that group or that component that you wish to flatten, which is this, first floor roof planes. So these both happen to be directly under complex roof design, so they are both in the same context. And so we select both at the same time, then go up to the plugins menu item, and then we select flatten to plane. You can see how Outliner is doing its thing, trying to go ahead and keep up with it, and this can take some time on a big model. So it's always best to collapse the Outliner before you do this. And you can see that our flattened roof plane has shown up here in the Outliner and here on the model. So we don't need its container. We're going to explode that. I'll just move this up where it belongs. We'll hide the copy and then rename this first floor roof plan. And then looking at the entry and the turret roof, I'm wondering how exactly we're going to do the intersection. And so I think I might just defer that, and to do that I'm going to group the entry, plan, and name it. Entry roof plan, and then hide it and defer that decision for later. And then clean this up a little bit, get rid of some extraneous edges. And we'll have a little better look at it to see how it fits together, and I believe that is correct. The turret roof will die at the wall, and the entry roof will bear on top of the turret roof. And so now we'll get rid of some of these extra extraneous lines, leaving one that will represent our rafter, which we'll duplicate later. Before we go any further, I want to talk about the rectangle tools. I had you download and install a plugin called Rotated Rectangle. Now this is the standard rectangle tool, And you'll notice that it only works along the red and green, well, and any of the axes actually, depending on how you have the drawing oriented. And as you draw it out, you get this dotted line that indicates whether it's a golden section or whether it's a true rectangle, a true square. Okay, which is very handy. If you wished to go ahead and drag it out along the green axis for the length, and you wanted to then enter a width, and what you would do is you would type in the width first, in this case 1.5, and then type comma, and then tab, and then enter. The tab is to accept by default the y dimension, or the y dimension along the green axis. And then if you were to do this in the red axes, it would be similar but reversed. So we would go ahead and type in tab first to accept the length along the red axis, comma, and then 1.5, enter. Now, as I said, it only works along the axes, and so if you wanted to go ahead and draw it along a line that was not along the axes, for example here, you can't do it. You'd have to draw the rectangle and then rotate the rectangle. So the rotate a rectangle tool, which I have reassigned the R shortcut key to. The R shortcut key was originally designated for the standard rectangle tool, and I have reassigned it to the rotated rectangle tool for my setup, because I find the rotated rectangle tool to be much more useful than the standard tool. So I'm typing R for the rotated rectangle tool, and then it will snap to in any direction, and then I click on the left mouse key to accept the length, and then click again. The rotated rectangle tool, however, does not give you any kind of an indication, a dashed line to indicate whether it's a golden section or a square. Nonetheless, a much more useful tool than the standard rectangle tool. Let's start placing the structural members. I'm going to just draw a guideline here, some distance up from the end. Edit mode, select the axis tool, find the center, hold down the shift key to lock the inference right there. Okay, and then extend it so that the red axis is along the length of our 6 by. Just double click, and that locates the axes there, and we'll do the same for everything else. Some reason that doesn't want to do it. Let's try it one more time. There we go. Now I think I use a 6 by for this ridge, and these two hips. Probably shift down to a 4 by for this valley and these two hips. Let's try that first. Go ahead and select this, and we're going to use one of those plugins that I had you install. So context click, that's right mouse button on the 6x item, going down here where it says Align Group and Component. Click on it, and then come over here, click on the intersection of the hips and the ridge, and extend this out in the what is going to be the red axis on the 6x, which is along the length of the hip. Click, and then what we want to do is we want to find the green axis, which shows up with a very faint dotted line. That's the blue axis, and we're talking about the axes of the context at this point. There it is. I don't care if the blue axis is going down or up. It makes no difference to me. All right, there. Right click, align. Looking for the green axis. That looks like it. Okay. Copy. Okay, now before we get too far along, we want to determine what how the intersections are on these things. So these are the 3 items that we created. In fact, I'm just going to select all of these. There we go. And make these a group. I'm going to call this group skeleton. This ridge and these 2 hips that we created, I'm going to select and explode. So that we can easily edit them. And then go ahead and edit the intersections to your preference. So we'll continue doing this, basically distributing these rectangles that represent the structural members 2x, 4x, 6x, where I'm just going to do it arbitrarily here, where I think maybe that thickness of structural member is necessary. So for example, I'll probably make these 4x's, these 2 hips 4x's, this ridge 4x, this valley 4x. I'll make the rafters 2x's. I'll make this ridge here, this valley, this blind hip here, I'll make those 4x's. And these over here 6x's, and so on. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through it as quickly as I can. So I believe we've got all the structural elements, the ridges, hips, valleys, smattering of rafters done. What we have here, this line here, and over to here, here, and then around, is a roof-to-wall intersection. So there will be a ledger up against that wall, and we need to develop the ledger. We'll do that by selecting these edges. I'll make a copy of this, drag it out of the way, clean it up. And there's a bunch of line segments here I'm going to get rid of and redo them. And then this edge is made out of two line segments, and I want to join them, so I'm just going to select them both. And then from the Tools menu, there is a item called Weld. There it is. Well, you can't see it, it's off the screen, but it is Weld. This is one of the plugins I had you install. And now it's a single segment. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. And I have that Weld plugin assigned to W, shortcut key, so I'm pressing W. And everything's there. We'll then use the offset tool and then offset to the outside, 1.5 inches for a 2x ledger. And we'll just move it back to where it belongs. And the ledger needs to capture this hip here, so I'll just drag it out a little bit. In fact, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to terminate it, so I'll make it a little long. Because the rafters are extending into the ledger, we'll need to trim them. And then get rid of extraneous edges. And there we have our completed skeleton in 2 dimensions. I'm going to unhide the first floor plan so I can check on a few things, such as this hip right here. See how it extends out beyond the framing. That actually needs to be trimmed. And then I'll quickly look around to see if there's any other situations like that. I don't think there are. And we'll rehide that. And then get rid of these guys. We don't need them anymore. Then I'll look over everything quickly and then Control A to select all and make sure that each skeleton member has been grouped individually.